I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle, and you are listening to or watching Radio Maine, our video podcast where we spend time with Maine-connected people, and in this case, certainly a Mainer born and raised, who are celebrating creativity and the human spirit. And this is something that we talk about in a really broad way. Some people think, oh, well, you're sponsored by the Portland Art Gallery, so are you talking to artists only? And today we definitely are talking to somebody who's creative in a very different way. This is Dr. Philip Finemore. He is the founder and owner of WorkFitME Mobile Physical Therapy. So a clinician who is being very creative about the work that he does, and also a podcaster. So welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the other side of the microphone from time to time.
I know. So it's always interesting for me when that happens. So do you feel more comfortable being the asker or the asked?
I haven't thought about that. That's a good question. I think I feel fairly comfortable either way. You know, I love being able to ask those questions and get to know people, but love the opportunity to do the same and have some back and forth, because there's always, even if you're the one getting asked, there's always some insights that come from the kind of back and forth conversation that come from it. So I think I like it because it's different, because I don't always get asked the questions, but yeah, I enjoy both sides of that for sure.
Tell me about your business first, because when I read that during COVID, you were apparently furloughed and you had to come up, you have a doctorate in physical therapy. You're very well trained in your field. You had to come up with plan B, and you decided, I'm going to start a business, because why not during COVID, right?
Sure.
So you decided to do mobile physical therapy through WorkFitME.
Yeah.
What was that like, making that big leap?
Yeah. You know, it was interesting. It one of those few, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this or anyone watching, listening have experienced this, one of those few moments in life where there was almost just like no second guessing, like I've got to do something and maybe do something different here. You know, just I think I've been mulling around an idea like this for a while. There were aspects of what the business is today that I'd always been sort of thinking about and wanting to do in some capacity within the field, whether it was for myself or an extension of a bigger group or organization. But I just sort of did it. You know, a few months prior to being furloughed, the last clinic I worked for, the owner and I were looking at lease spaces for me to branch off and run a portion of his business, essentially. And within a few months of that, hey, the corporate business partner is basically saying, if you're not running or owning the clinic, I've got to furlough you for now because we don't know what's going on. So the business actually started as a workplace injury prevention consulting type business. I saw the whole work from home switch happening, and I was like, people are going to go from computers in an office to laptops and easy chairs, and that could be a problem for different aspects of their body. So I was going down that route, just trying to almost market myself. So in case those opportunities that I was working on prior to being furloughed showed back up, I had some marketability and things like that. And it just sort of organically turned into people reaching out to me who wanted to see me for the PT services, trying to come up with a creative way to make that happen, you know, via virtual visits and then eventually in home, and did that with just a couple of people and sort of fell in love with it and just kind of took off from there and just leaned very heavily into the performance and injury prevention PT. So I kind of combined the preventative aspect that I was going with sort of what a lot of people would consider our more traditional physical therapy services, and turned it into the mobile model and took it from there.
Are you able to do as much from using your mobile approach as you would if you were in a clinic setting?
Yeah, I think for a majority of people we are. I mean, it definitely, we do have a clinic location now, just some of what you spoke to, needing access to more options for people's care, mixed with demand, just led us to needing to be in one place a little more often as people got that much more comfortable coming back into offices and things like that. But yeah, I think for the most part, we're able to do a pretty good job challenging people the way we need to challenge them to achieve what they're trying to achieve with their confidence and resilience in their body and their daily performance, whether we go to them or whether we have them come into the clinic. But every once in a while, we get someone that has to like move some legitimate weight around or something that, you know, based on the goals that they're trying to work on. And we do need the availability to the equipment to do that. So yeah, we're much more hybrid now than we were. We're not fully mobile anymore, but we still offer that mobile aspect. And yeah, we're able to challenge people in a lot of different ways and get really creative with how we do that, just with their own body, with different forms of resistance and things like that to get them to maximize how they're performing in their space. And doing it in their own space is a benefit as well.
This idea that we've been thinking about healthcare backwards. And anybody who's been listening to Radio Maine for a while, or the 15 years I've been doing this work, understands that I actually believe that we are doing healthcare backwards. I don't really think we're caring for health. I think what we're doing is fixing problems that arise, which is very valuable. I think if you've got an acute injury, certainly a rehab of that injury, very important.
Absolutely.
But if you start from a place of health and you're trying to optimize health, then the approach is really different.
Yeah.
Tell me about your thinking on this.
Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. I think a lot of people nowadays would call our current healthcare system more sick care rather than actual health care. No insurance company out there pushes preventative care other than your yearly physical, right? Which is still somewhat a form of reaction. Like sometimes people wait to go talk to their primary care or don't talk to them about a problem they have until that yearly physical for a variety of different reasons. So I agree wholeheartedly. The data is there that shows that we would all be better off, both from if you look at the finances of healthcare and obviously our own health and performance and kind of confidence in how we can live our lives to the fullest if we were that much more preventative. And to me, that goes way beyond just like eating right and going to the gym. You know, I always say that the people that work with us do better when they're not just working with us. They've got a team of people, and whatever that team looks like might be a little different for everybody, and how much they're utilizing services that we offer versus what those other providers offer is going to maybe ebb and flow. You know, you're going to utilize certain services more during different, seasons or times of your life, but always sort of having that team to keep things as well-rounded as possible is going to give you a lot more bang for your buck, we'll call it, from each of those different team members. So it's not one size fits all. It's not this is the way that everybody should do it, but there are certain aspects of the sort of ancillary health and wellness field that I think everyone should have in their back pocket or be on board with in some capacity, pretty much all the time to drive that more preventative model. Talk
to me about that. If you're suggesting that we should have a team, and I absolutely agree with you, who would you say belongs on someone's team?
I think having a primary care provider that has the time and the resources and the ability to actually work alongside you and not just be the person you go see when there's a problem is big. I'm a big fan of the direct primary care model. Not that you can't get what I just described in a more traditional model. I think some of those providers do exist out there. I just think they're harder to find. And most of the ones that want to do that go and start a direct primary care practice. So I think I would definitely recommend people check that out if they're not familiar with it. I think some sort of gym guidance or personal training, whether that is someone online that you utilize to help you like maybe program what you're trying to do to move your body. But there's a big array there. Like if yoga is your thing, having someone that a specific instructor or class that you go to, Pilates, right? It doesn't have to be like lifting in the gym. I'm a big proponent of strength training. I think even if you're a yoga Pilates person, there should still be some moving of some weight and resistance against gravity that happens alongside that. But having something that is an activity that you really enjoy doing and that you have some level of guidance in how to improve and perform in that activity. I'm a little biased here, but I think as a physical therapist, we help keep people doing those activities at a higher level. A lot of the clientele we work with are very active people. They are working out multiple days a week and still have aches and pains that they just sort of ignore. Those aches and pains probably aren't as bad as they could be because they're as active as they are, but we can eliminate those by making those movement patterns a little bit more well-rounded and making sure that we're loading a good a good pattern of movement to get you more out of loading that pattern of movement. And then I also think things like chiropractic and massage are great to have as well. So I think some capacity of those things are kind of first things. And then, but in that realm, like acupuncturists and there's Eastern medicine, there's Chinese medicine, like I think if you like it and it serves a purpose for you and your health and your body, you should run it down. But I think it's going to take a variety of different people within those realms to actually make your health as well-rounded as possible.
In listening to the people that you just mentioned, it's a very different sounding team than often patients end up needing when they go into an acute care situation. So if you have rehabilitation of an injury, a significant injury, even a minor injury, or if you've gone through cancer or you've had some sort of surgery, although a lot of those people would be helpful to have, and hopefully people do have access to those, what often happens is really sort of this reactive team around you that just gets you back to some baseline state of health.
Yeah.
And those are just different investments.
100%. Yeah, I think some of the folks I mentioned have been a little better at showing their value as preventative providers, like massage therapists, chiropractors, acupuncturists, things like that. And it's not just like marketing, they're not just claiming they're good at it. Like there's research and there's evidence, and people wouldn't keep going if they didn't get some value out of them. But I think there are some other areas that haven't done a good enough job showing their value there. I think my profession falls in that category. Our profession sort of arose in a very reactionary way, and we've just never reinvented ourselves, which is part of why I started the practice and operate it the way that I do, is to sort of help reinvent how the general public sees us and utilizes us, and the medical field too. Try to get everyone out of that mode of thinking that we're only when things are so bad people can't operate in their day-to-day life. So yeah, I think to your point, a lot of what you just described has to do with our current model of health/sick care that we've already discussed. And then some of it just has to do with, honestly, just a little PR. Like we have to show people our value and what things can look like, not just what do things look like, what things can look like, as far as how any combination of those sort of professionals we talked about can provide value. And again, there are going to be times where you're going to need to utilize us more than some of those other people I mentioned, and vice versa. But I think having that touch point of some frequency with a good combination of those different providers is incredibly beneficial for everybody.
As we mentioned at the beginning, you grew up here in Maine, and you have ties to Oakland. Do you still live in Oakland?
Yep. Nope. I live here in Southern Maine. I live in Hollis.
Okay.
Maine. Yeah.
But that's where you grew up.
Yeah.
And you have a doctorate. You have a background in kinesiology, which I'm going to ask you in a minute what that is for people who don't know. But did you see yourself when you were growing up in this sort of centrally located part of Maine, going in this direction of physical therapy and getting your doctorate? Is that something that you always aspired to, or was there some sort of thing that prompted you to go in that direction?
Yeah. I think if you sat 100 physical therapists in a room and asked them why they became a physical therapist, probably 90 of them would say that they had PT at some point in their life, or like a family member very close to them had PT for something pretty impactful. So me personally, it was some just sports injuries and things like that led me to learning more about this field. But I always wanted to help people in some way. My mom will be very happy to hear this. She kept a lot of things from when I was a kid, obviously. And I think in like third grade or something like that, I had something I wrote out that I wanted to just help people in some capacity, like when I grew up. So service has always just been sort of part of my life and upbringing, and combine that with just some of my personal experiences in rehab with those sports injuries, and interested in a bit of athletic training, because we had a really great athletic trainer at our high school when I was playing high school sports and stuff. So yeah, just all of those things kind of led me in that direction. And I was always drawn toward just science and in general, and just felt that PT was a way that I could help people in a way that allowed me a little bit more personal connection too. I love just connecting with people and getting to know people, hence the podcast and starting the business and all that stuff. So yeah, it just, as all those experience kind of, parts of my personality and life experiences converged together, it just kind of pointed me in this direction. And by my last couple of years of high school, I kind of knew that this is what I wanted to do, and feel very lucky that I never wavered in that. I was able to kind of figure that out and just chase it down.
So tell me about kinesiology. What is kinesiology for those people who are listening and have some interest?
Yeah, so it's that word basically means the study of human movement. So the bachelor's degree that we got at, I went to Husson University in Bangor for my undergraduate and my doctorate. They have a great accelerated program. So typically physical therapists do like 4 years of some undergrad degree. It could be a kinesiology, could be athletic training, could be exercise science, whatever that bachelor's degree is. And then the graduate portion is a 3-year doctorate. Husson does that in like 6 years. So it's a very accelerated undergraduate. And then my senior year of college was really my first year of graduate school. So that was one of the reasons I went there. It seemed efficient. I wanted to, like I said, I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to get there in an efficient way that would set me up well for a career. And so I chose that. So yeah, kinesiology is the study of human movement. So like I said, the root of what we do is understanding where and what everything is in the body and how it interacts together and how it optimally should move together. And when we find it not doing that, we're able to assess that movement and find a way to fix that pattern. So yeah, it's a big foundation of what we do on a daily basis. One
of the things that I've seen happening as not only somebody who works remotely, works for myself, but also has had many patients over the years who have gone from a semi-active role to really standing in front of a computer most of the time, in front of bright lights, meetings, keyboarding, is that the injury patterns seem to be shifting. And even I now spend a lot of time working with Claude and doing vibe coding. And so there's a lot of me standing in front of the computer, like click, 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 click. And so I'm wondering, have you seen a shift in the patterns of people's injuries or tightness in their bodies or the way that they sort of move in the world as a result of either keyboarding more, being on camera more, or working remotely? Is there something you've noticed?
100%. Yes, very much so. And I don't think this is just from marketing, but I think over the last 6 years, one of the most common things we've seen is what I like to call schneck pain. Just general like diffuse shoulder neck pain.
By the way, I'm laughing because I absolutely have this. So it's a thing.
Schneck pain is a thing, and we see a lot of people for it. And I think, the other buzzword out there is tech neck, right? You hear that, and you are seeing that. I think that even predated the COVID sort of work from home, everything you just sort of described over the past 6 years. Just being on our devices and having our head and neck fall forward on our back has been a problem for probably the better part of a decade at this point. And we're seeing it in younger and younger people. I mean, the amount of late teens, early 20s folks I've seen in my 11 plus year career with schneck and upper back and even lower back pain that's actually 100% related to what's going on up here. There's nothing actually wrong with anything in their lower back. It's just where everything is showing up for them. That's gotten exponentially more noticeable in the past decade. But yes, the specific schneck pain that I talked about has really ramped up the past 6 years. And it is very much a byproduct of what I described earlier when I started my business as that workplace injury prevention consulting, going from a desk setup at an office, which most offices nowadays, especially if you're in the corporate world, are pretty ergonomically minded. So to go from a setup like that to, again, a laptop in the easy chair or the kitchen counter or even the kitchen table is still a huge change. And if we're not doing that right, both from a setup perspective, but also how your body works and what you do during the day with your body, if we're not addressing those right things, then yeah, absolutely. This area literally from here down into the arm and hand and then down through the mid to lower back, even into the hips, it's all connected. leg bones connect to the hip bones connect to the backbone, right? That old elementary school song is a very basic version of what I deal with every day. But yes, that has been the biggest change that we have seen. There's just a larger lack of variety in people's movement patterns, which leads to more repetitive stress in certain areas. So then when variety is introduced to the system, when you're doing things outside of the 9 to 5, that's kind of when we're running into trouble. We're not seeing a lot of trouble from the clicking. It's more of what the clicking and being at the computer all day does to the body that then doesn't allow it to adapt to the variety of loading that life throws at it. And that's kind of where the problem is.
I'm also wondering, as somebody, again, who, like you, I have my own business. And so I will work when the work needs to get done.
Yeah.
So I might be up at 4 a.m. clicking, or I might be on camera doing a virtual book circle, later in the evening. And being on camera is its own set of, you have to sit there and you have to smile.
Yeah,
and, there's its own set of sort of ergonomics. But I'm wondering if with people who have become entrepreneurs or, people who, like Minda Gold, she's a direct primary care person we've interviewed for this podcast. And, you just put in a lot of hours.
Yeah.
So if you go to work and it's essentially 9 to 5, it's a tough 9 to 5, but it's a little bit more limited.
Right.
But with this kind of creep into our other hours,
Yep.
Do you think that's impacting people physically?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, any time that I think a lot of the research out there would tell us that having a little more predictability in how we're resting and recovering and when we're active and we're not, that all is going to impact everything that we're talking about here. But in some aspects, I think it does allow you a bit more opportunity to almost like schedule in building that variety in, unless you're someone like myself who, if I have something that I have to wake up at 4 for, the odds of me just like plowing through the day and ending at a normal time are a lot higher. So I'm like many of us, my own worst enemy in that regard. I will just sort of plow through. But I think for a lot of people, they've gravitated toward jobs that allow them some of that flexibility so that they can maybe start a little earlier, but then break and maybe go do some exercise or something, just so that they aren't having to be so rigid within that 9 to 5. And I think most workplaces are good with that. And part of that is just to attract employees and keep employees. But I think they recognize that it's better for everyone's mental, emotional, and physical health as well. So I think it's a double-edged sword, because there is a possibility there that you just have days where you just start earlier and just wind up working longer and putting those repetitive stressors on your body. And you spend more time in that lack of variety that I was talking about. But it also does give you opportunity, if you take advantage of it, to add some of that variety into your day and prevent those repetitive stressors from becoming a problem for you. So I think it's better for most people. I think you just have to be aware of how you're utilizing that schedule. And again, that's where those different providers that you can kind of take advantage of from a preventative perspective can help you identify those things and give you some focus on what you should work on when you need to sprinkle things into your day and give you some direction on how you can prevent those repetitive stressors from becoming a problem for you.
And you are raising something that's important. And I know that one of the things I like about working for myself is that, I go out for my run in the morning, halfway through the day, I take the dogs for a walk around the island. I throw in some yoga, some rowing, some different things that I couldn't, if I was working in more of a corporate setting, which I've done for many years.
Yeah.
It's not like that would really happen.
Right.
The best I could ever do when I was working in a more corporate setting was go for a walk at lunchtime.
Right.
If it wasn't near a highway or, something like that.
Right.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think that for me, actually, I actually really like my work. So I just get really caught up in it.
Yeah.
So I'll get up so early because I want to start doing stuff.
Right.
And then in 4 hours will pass. I'm like, why does my neck bother me?
Right.
Because I haven't moved. So you're right. It is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And it is funny that it's not like the mean people are keeping us chained to our desks. Sometimes we're the ones who stay there because
Right.
we just get kind of caught up.
100%. It's very, very easy to do. And yeah, like I said, I think you just have to have a strategy for how to combat that a little bit. And you also have to make sure that it's an efficient strategy, because part of what you're talking about is being efficient and taking advantage of the schedule. And you do love what you do, so you want to get all these things accomplished, which means you can't have this laundry list of things you need to be working on, because people just simply don't have the time for the laundry list of things. But that's why we work with people to kind of find I've used this term at least once already, the big bang for our buck stuff that we can just interject into the day. And there are going to be times where you need to take a little more time and do a little bit more at one time to have a bigger effect on some of these things. But there are little things that can be sprinkled into the day that can really help you combat some of those issues.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying. I mean, I think that sometimes we kind of know what we need to do, but we really need somebody else to tell us.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we need to actually have an injury so that we can be like, I can't keep doing this. I feel like my life is going to be a lot less painful if I can find another way to deal with this.
Yeah. Human nature.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been talking more about sort of the injury. And I know prevention is important to you, but also optimizing. I mean, you have people who, so things are well balanced. I also do massage. I go for my osteopathic manipulative medicine with Dr. JC Goddard, who's also been on our show. So I'm a huge fan of all these things. I practice acupuncture, and there have been times where I'm training for marathons, and I want to make sure that I've got my body doing all the things necessarily to get to that place.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about optimizing things, you are trying to help people reach whatever goal it is that they want to reach.
Yep.
Maybe it's just stay healthy enough to work. Maybe it's hang out with your grandkids. Maybe it's run marathons.
Right.
So you're just trying to meet people where they are. So what types of things do you see people coming to you for when they want to optimize sort of that next level?
Yeah, it kind of runs the gamut, and it's honestly a lot of what you just said. I think a majority of people still come to us with some sort of problem, like there is something that's bothering them. I think the messaging of our preventative work it has been working, because we are getting people coming to us a lot sooner in the process, which is great. I'm very, very proud of that. I say all the time, if our schedule was full of people that we're seeing like once or twice a month, I would be the happiest physical therapist on planet Earth, because that means our messaging has worked wonderfully, and we've shown our value in that realm. And we do have a lot of that in the practice, but usually people come to us with some sort of issue, whether it's acute enough that it's really interfering with their day, or maybe it's, hey, when I get into mile 4, I have a problem, or when I lift X amount of weight in this motion, I have a problem. So there's usually some problem that does trigger them. It's just how acute is that problem is the question. But it can literally be, well, stairs or like bleachers at my grandkids' Little League game are the problem. Or like I said, higher level activities like running, weightlifting, things like that. So we are giving them strategies that are, like you said, are going to really you put it beautifully, meet people where they're at and figure out how, if the things are going well, we're going to keep them there. And I'd like to tell people, we're just going to keep your floor high, right? My objective when I see you, if I'm seeing you a couple times a month, let's say on a preventative program, we're not going to just like, oh, let's do the same things we've been doing. Those look good. Like, keep it up. We're going to see like where do we have an opportunity here to make a pivot, to make a progression to, okay, that is way too easy for you now. Let's find a way to like challenge that area again. And let's make this switch to your programming and what you're doing with our programming, and maybe what you're doing with your general exercise programming. And so it's kind of a bit of strategy. It's a bit of actual work. And then, just making sure we're keeping that floor high and continuing to address the goal of maximizing performance. And I say performance because everyone performs somehow, whether it is climbing the bleachers at your grandkids' Little League game or getting ready to run a marathon. That's your performance. So we need to maximize your daily performance and keep it that way.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier was this podcast that you do. And this is actually how I think you're doing a great job with getting the message out there, because I initially got to know the work you're doing through the videos that you would post on, I don't do a lot of social media, but I'm on LinkedIn. So I would see these videos you post on LinkedIn. And then I saw that you were changing your podcast strategy. So it was more actually kind of this type of video podcast, sitting with people.
Yeah.
And so I would say that marketing and that sharing of stories and that meeting people and trying to find new ways of looking at things, I think that's, at least it's effective enough so that you and I are talking today. So
Sure.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I also would say, you are inspired also by innovative healthcare entrepreneurs, or you've mentioned Kevin Hancock's shared leadership approach.
Yeah.
So for me, what I'm getting the sense of is that for you, it's not just about marketing the profession. It's about finding a way to kind of lead into the future, which I find intriguing. So tell me more about that.
I went to PT school. I didn't go to business school. So when I decided to start a business and then it turned into what it is now, I needed some help. So a big part of that has been I've had some sort of coaching or mastermind work that I've done literally since, I don't know, I was 3 months into starting the business or so. So I've become just as passionate and excited about learning leadership and how to be a better entrepreneur and leader in the business as I have with my career as a physical therapist. So that's where it kind of came from, was kind of blending those two things together, just like I did in starting the business. So, and as I mentioned before, I just love talking and connecting with people, and I'm just like curious. I tell people all the time, one of my favorite things about my job is I get to learn like what other people do and how many like odd and unique and interesting careers there are out there, or things that are going on here in Maine that you would never know are here until you meet the people that do those things. Well, that's what you're doing here with this. So yeah, it's a blending of all of that. Just my general curiosity about people and kind of what drives them, wanting to learn more about leadership and owning a business and innovation. And then also mixing in that just health and wellness piece and kind of transforming how we do healthcare in Maine in the country. So that's really where it all came from.
What I love about what you're describing, because I'm also somebody who's spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to bring innovation into what arguably is a very conservative field, healthcare, and understandably so, because we're talking about people's lives and their health. Yeah. So we don't want to be harming them.
Right.
But as a result, I think that sometimes we're a little bit too closed off to what could happen in a better way for people in the future. And I think leadership is a big part of that. So when I hear you not just talking about leadership, but actually leading, you're showing up and being the change you want to see, which I find very exciting, because in healthcare today, there's sort of the camp, well, healthcare is bad, it's broken, so let's complain about it. Yeah. And I want to hear that, because it is valid. There is stuff that needs to happen. Right. And then the other camp is, well, there's all this opportunity. So how do we open up that space? How do we have more conversations that are exactly what you're describing? Saw a need, started a business. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it feels risky, but I'm going to be the change that I want to see. Yeah. And it sounds like that's really what you've been embracing.
I would say so. I think, like I said, we just need to, sometimes you gotta be different to show people that the norm is okay, but could be better. Right. And you almost have to like overcorrect a little bit just to try to drive things back to the middle, I think. And that's really what we're trying to do. I'm not only trying to change how we deliver the care, but I'm trying to change how the public perceives who we are and what we do. I'm trying to change how other physical therapists see the lens of what we do and how we help people. And not trying to say that way is no good, right? That the traditional way is no good, because I think it all serves a purpose. Like not every aspect of all these innovations and changes in how we deliver healthcare is going to work for everybody. There's still going to be a need for all of it, but we got to have it. We got to have the options. And I think we need to be a little less afraid of, to your point, innovation, especially on like the delivery side. I don't think we need to be cavalier in the actual nuts and bolts of the care, right? But cavalier enough to challenge the status quo, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? There are some parts of it that work. We just need to fine tune them and make them better. I think in my field in particular, where we need to be cavalier is to break out of the whole, you only come to us and you only get work on the part of your body that was put on the referral by the referring provider, and that's all that we do. That I'm not okay with because that only works to a certain point, and it's not good for our long-term health and well-being as far as our physical performance is concerned. But the tools in which we deliver that, we know how to do that, right? We just need to maybe expand them a little bit. So I hope I'm explaining that well, but I think it's the to your point, innovation in healthcare, I think needs to be honestly more on like the quote unquote business side of it, even more so than the actual like delivery of the care. Because I think if we fix a lot of the model, the delivery automatically gets better.
Well, doubling down on what you're saying, the single biggest reason I hear for staying where we are is insurers won't pay for it. Mm-hmm. And so what you just described where, I'm one of those providers who's like, well, this person has neck pain,
right?
Go see Phil. And that's because that's what payers will actually reimburse,
right?
Which is very understandable. From the beginning of practicing acupuncture, where there was no reimbursement for acupuncture, it was entirely out of pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely understand that in some cases this is not going to be a possibility, and it's really unfortunate,
right?
Because we shouldn't be gated by what insurance companies will pay for.
Yeah.
And that being said, I understand insurance companies are like, well, I guess there's only so much money, so I suppose. Well, we won't go down the path of insurance. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other podcast. Exactly. But anyway, gated by what other people will pay for health.
Right.
But what I think the nice thing about where we are now and the years of practice that you and I collectively have together is that we know that some people are able and willing to look at health differently and are able and willing to invest in their health beyond what somebody else is willing to pay for.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I've learned there is that people that others might think wouldn't be able to make that investment are willing to because they know it's going to be worth it, because it truly is an investment. It's not just an expense, because if it allows them to be more productive at work and enjoy life out of work, that's worth it to them. The goal that they're working on is worth it to them. And not to jump on the soapbox too much, but the problem is the third party payers aren't paying for a lot of it anyway. So like you have the insurance and there's still probably 40% of people that still have to pay out of pocket for a majority of what they do. And if you're going to get a watered down product because you're going to go see someone just because they take their insurance, but you have a massively high deductible and you're going to wind up paying somewhere between $130 to $200 and something a visit anyway to see someone like me while you're getting seen with 2 or 3 other patients at the same time. That's not value, right? You might get better because that therapist might be really good and they're still going to have an impact on you while they see those couple other people, but it's not the same thing. And you're not getting the value.
Well, I'm actually really glad that you mentioned that, because you're right. I mean, what used to get paid for and what's getting paid for now and what you get out of that extremely high deductible and all these out-of-pocket expenses anyway, you might as well choose where you'd like to go. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very strange way to have maybe found ourselves to somebody like you that's actually a choice. But I guess it's a weird good thing that's happened as a result of high deductibles.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
the idea is bad, high deductibles,
right.
But if the consequence is this, then I guess it's not the worst thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's driving the innovation. And I think going back to that innovation part of our conversation, I think more people choosing not to go that traditional route, both providers and consumers, providers and patients, let's say, is the thing that's going to be the catalyst to changing it. Right? It's going to take a while because it's going to take a lot to chip away at the hundreds of billions of dollars that these companies are making in this model. But it's the catalyst, I think, to showing people that there's a different way and that there's a better way and that people can still be profitable on the delivery side and the third party payer side if we change it. So it's got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, Phil, I've really enjoyed our conversation. How can people find you if they would like to have therapy or they would like to see your podcast?
Yeah. So, as you said, business is WorkFitME Mobile Physical Therapy. So, workfitme.com for our website, at WorkFitMe on any social media platform. The podcast is called Strength for Your Purpose. So you can search that on YouTube or any podcast platform, and we should show up there. We've got like 153, 155. I don't remember how many episodes there we're at now, but yeah, somewhere in that range. So yeah, you can find that on social media as well. So yeah, we'd love for people to follow us and reach out and ask questions, and always just love to be a resource for people if they're wondering if there's anything we can do to help them. So,
and I also mentioned at the beginning that this type of creativity is maybe different than a lot of the ones that we focus on Radio Maine, but I'm hoping that we can convince you to bring your creativity to maybe one of our Portland Art Gallery openings that occur on the first Thursday of every month.
Yeah.
Because I know that artists, like everybody else, and those who love art, have physical therapy needs.
Absolutely.
And also want to optimize their lives. So I hope that I'll be able to convince you to come to one of those.
I would be happy to do that. Yeah. I'm always looking for creative opportunities to spread the word. So about what we're talking about. So yes, absolutely.
All right. Very good.
Yeah.
I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle. You've been listening to or watching Radio Maine, our video podcast where we talk with Maine-connected people who are doing things in new and creative ways. We explore creativity and the human spirit. Today we've been speaking with Dr. Philip Finemore, who is the founder and owner of WorkFitME Mobile Physical Therapy. And I hope you'll take the time to go watch one of his podcasts in addition to this one. So just line it up next. After this one, watch or listen to his podcast and take the opportunity to go optimize your life, connect with Phil. I've enjoyed this conversation. I think that you would enjoy meeting him too. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.